Financial Group radio show. Thanks for being with us this morning. Every week we come to you and talk about retirement. Give us a call at 612-504-8400. We're always havenfinancialgroup.com. Great tools there, our events that are coming up, our classes. Again, Kim, great to be with you. And again, all the listeners as well. We appreciate it.
Well, it's so nice to be with you. And before we started this morning, we were just sort of recapping last week's show and how delightful that was to have your beautiful wife with us and to hear the story of Haven Financial. I really, really enjoyed that. And I feel confident that the listeners really enjoyed it as well.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, they got to see a different side of, kind of me being side by side by my wife. I was quite intrigued by, she actually had a pretty good filter because sometimes she doesn't necessarily have that. But you could probably tell Rochelle is the people person. She loves people, and it shows on a daily basis at our office.
Well, I want you to know that I think what really showed is just that this is a warm, family-friendly kind of place. And that is so important when people are going, to somebody to turn their retirement over and to talk about the things that are so important, the things that they've worked all their lives for. So I know that you made people feel comfortable. I know you do that on a daily basis. And Rochelle certainly is a big part of that. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. This week, we're going to talk about retirement insight for Gen X. So, Larry, you're a Gen Xer.
Yes, I am.
So people at home may be going, well, and what am I? So Generation X would be someone who was born between 1964 and 1980. And I would imagine that probably is a big chunk of the audience who is listening this morning.
I bet it is. That's interesting because for the longest part during my career, we work a lot with the baby boomer generation.
Sure.
And now we are seeing these Gen Xers definitely more than ever. And yeah, I fit right in the middle of that. So, and now I know I'm a Gen Xer because I never knew what those dates were until you just told me.
There you go. So you can add that to your resume. You're also a Gen Xer. There you have it. Well, I think it's important to talk about this because we are talking about, these are people who are just about to approach 60 on the low end of it, but are certainly in the midst of their 40s and their 50s. And so, this is the time, Larry, I know you say it should be from the time you take your first job, but I mean, this is the time that, people start to get their kids sort of settled and they begin to look to the future. And it's a time I know that is important to maybe start sitting down and making some real plans.
Yeah, in a perfect world, even though if we're far from it, maybe the kids are off payroll. I'm not sure what age that is, but our daughters are still on payroll. And now maybe there's a little bit more disposable income. You scrape by, you did the best you could in saving in those retirement accounts thus far. And then you get to this point where now we have catch-up contribution limits. We can add a little bit more to those retirement accounts. And hopefully we can just pad that retirement in these very, very important years.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at what we're going to talk about today as a whole. First off, we're going to talk about those retirement accounts and how important it is that you not ignore them. We're going to get some really great advice here from Larry. Then replacing the benefits of a pension. We talk about this pretty frequently here on the show. If you're lucky enough to have a pension, you're lucky enough. But a lot of people, unfortunately, do not have pensions anymore. So we'll talk about how you can replace that idea. Then Glenn Ramey's going to come in and join us. Glenn is the healthcare expert at Haven Financial. He's going to talk to us a little bit about healthcare planning and how important it is to start thinking about that as a Gen Xer. And for that matter, anybody who's thinking about retirement sooner, be thinking about that sooner rather than later. And then finally, unique retirement tips for all of those Gen Xers out there. So let's start, Larry, with this whole idea of not ignoring your retirement account. I think that where we start with that is just the idea that you really, if you have an opportunity to get involved in a retirement account, do it.
Yeah, you're missing an opportunity if you don't. And obviously we encourage at a younger age, starting somewhere to get to somewhere, even if it's a little bit, maybe increase that percentage as much as you possibly can, because the power of compounding is so powerful. So if you have these plans available at work and specifically if they're matching, you don't want to miss these opportunities. Now, coming with that, those employer plans, you have more wiggle room. You can put more money in. Whereas if you're just looking at contributions on your own, take advantage of that if it makes sense as well. But depending on age, right now, if you're over 50, you can add about up to $7,000 a year in contributions to those IRAs or Roth IRAs. And, it all boils down, as we talk weekly, Kim, about taxes. Make
Mm,
sure it fits into your tax plan.
mhm.
Sometimes people just assume that, the pre-tax is where it all should go. Maybe that is the case. Maybe it's not the case. But it's why we talk through these things. But again, start saving, max it out the best you can, and you'll be very happy you did in those latter years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the earlier you can get on that, the better. Let's talk a little bit about, you just mentioned, IRAs and 401ks. There's traditional and there's Roth forms. Talk to us about what the difference between the two are.
Yeah, and nowadays with 401ks, I would say a big percentage of those employer plans, whether they're 403b, 401k, thrift savings plan, deferred comp, they're all type of employer plans. Now, most of those now all have Roth options. So the traditional is the pre-tax, where you get the tax benefit up front, where the Roth is after tax, but you get the benefit of never being taxed again years from now when you start drawing on it, or if legacy is important, those monies will go tax free to your beneficiary. So again, weighing the tax ramifications, what makes sense, and then again, oftentimes having a little bit different recipe in those types of accounts. In Roth accounts, oftentimes many people will take a little bit more risk because it's more of a longer term.
Hmm.
And then you also want to use different types of holdings within IRAs and brokerage accounts that have different tax effects. There's a strategy behind the tax piece as much as there is the recipe for the types of investments, asset classes, and that type of thing. So you don't have to be the expert, but that's where we come into play. Even those that we don't, work with their 401ks, our investment team, we offer advice. We'll help, we'll give them advice as to based upon their menu or the recipe that they have in their plans. And many times they're limited to those investments only. We'll give them sound advice as to, what we recommend. And, don't take the easy approach. Sometimes it's easy to just take the target dated funds that were created for simplicity reasons.
Hmm.
Those are not always the best investment options. They're oftentimes cookie cutter milk down versions of stocks and bonds, and you really want to get the right asset location, depending upon age, depending upon the element of time, and how close you are to retirement. All those are factors that we want to make sure we're bringing to the forefront.
Sure, absolutely. Now, if you are a Gen Xer, so again, just for those of you who maybe are just joining us, we're talking about the generation that was born after 1964 and up to 1980. So we're talking about folks who are ranging, in their 40s, their 50s at this point, under most everybody under 60. Those younger years, it's okay to be a little more aggressive in some of those retirement accounts, right?
Oh, it is. And when we look at the big picture, I ask them, how much of your total retirement investments do you want to gamble with in the market? And how much do you want to protect? They tell me
Hmm.
we implement the strategy. It sounds simple, not always the case. But the problem is, most people don't know how much risk they are taking. And that can be a
Right.
recipe for a major problem if the timing's not right. We call that stress testing your portfolio, being aware of it beforehand, before something negatively happens in the market. And then I strongly encourage people, hear the word rebalancing. Rebalancing, I
Mhm.
call that just a tune up for your investments. As there's volatility up and down and sideways, we really want to go in and rebalance, take advantage of the downturns as much as the upturns to make sure that you're in the right lane as far as a risk model, and you're not getting too much or too less of risk. You want to maximize those gains to the best of your ability.
Absolutely. So, folks, what we're talking about here today, if you missed the top of the show, we're looking sort of at Gen Xers and why they may be um, a little different right now because they're maybe not in retirement, but certainly should be in those planning years. So we're talking specifically to Gen Xers. Certainly, that doesn't mean that this doesn't apply, Larry, across the board. This is to baby boomers, and this is to Gen Z. This is to anybody who's out there in the working world right now. Planning retirement is important, and these retirement accounts are important the minute you have an opportunity to get in. But specifically today, we're talking to our Gen Xers out there. If you have some questions, maybe your portfolio needs some balancing, or maybe you don't have a portfolio yet, and you're ready. You know that the time has come. You sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel. Give Haven Financial Group a call. It's 612-504-8400. The number again is 612-504-8400. Set up a free consultation. Head in and talk with members of the team about what you're planning for your retirement and how you can get there. As Larry frequently says, you don't want to just survive in retirement. You want to thrive. And the best way to do that is to start planning now. It's havenfinancialgroup.com. Larry, when we come back, let's talk more about Gen Xers and the idea of replacing pensions. This is sort of that generation that has no pension, right? This is part of the first group where pensions started to disappear. So we'll talk about that when we come back right here on the Haven Financial Group radio show.